Hi there, Neil Whitfield here with day 5 of my 101 Small Business Marketing Tips Challenge video series, whatever you want to call it. So far we have gone through 4 tips. For those of you who don't know why I'm doing this, very briefly, I came across a list of 101 small business marketing tips from a website called thebounce.com, and it's a good list, but it's only just a couple of words on each tip, so I thought it would be valuable to expand on them and do a short video every day. So here I am. So far we've covered off things like having a written marketing plan, which is super important, doing some market research, carrying out a focus group, and yesterday another super important one, which was getting your head around your unique selling proposition. So today it's all very much about the fundamentals, the tips at the minute, which are refining your target audience or niche, or because thebounce.com is an American website, they probably would pronounce it niche. But I'm not American, so I'll say niche. So I hope that as a small business owner, you have a good understanding of who your target customer is. But unfortunately, from my experience, there's a lot of small business owners out there who don't really understand who their customer is. So often when asked, you know, who's your target buyer, small business owners are heard to say, everyone. Not going to work. You know, if you think about it, not many bin men buy Ferraris unless they've won the lottery. Not many single 20, 21-year-olds go to kiddie soft play areas. You know, it's really important to get an understanding of who your target customer is. So, any decent marketing plan, which we covered off on day 1, should have a section on your target customer. Very easy to start with the demographic side of things, which is, you know, age, male or female, a little bit about income. But what gets more interesting is when you start to think about, well, you know, what do they do in their spare time? One thing which I think is quite powerful is if you think of 3 F's, which are fund, follow, and frequent. So, what is your target customer fund? I.e., what else do they buy? Who do they follow? Now that can be physically sort of following on Facebook or Twitter, but also in the offline world, you know, where do they get their opinions from? Who are the influencers that they take notice of? So that's fund and follow and frequent. Where do they go? What do they do? You know, do they go to you know, bars and clubs? Do they go to 10-pin bowling? Do they go to crown green bowling? You know, very different, because then that gives you an understanding of what they do and potentially where you can target them. So if you don't have that level of understanding as to who your target customer is, then you need to get that as a starting point. Now, it might be, if you're a business that sells lots of things, then it might be that you have different target customers for each of your different products or services. That's fine, but it is an absolute good use of your time to develop a target audience for each. A lot of time is spent trying to get an understanding of your customer, and it's very valuable time to do that. Now, there are things out there to help you. There will be templates that you can get off the internet for a customer persona or customer avatar or customer portrait. where you fill in the details, and that will help you. One thing on my sort of customer portrait template, which I get clients to go through, I always ask that you give them a name, and I always ask that you try and find a photo. The reason I ask for a name and a photo is it makes it more real. So if you've got it pinned on your wall or something like that, then you can actually see what the person looks like. Names, funny ones. You know, people quite often feel a bit awkward about giving a made-up customer avatar a name. But, you know, if you've got, you know, Robert Henry Fitzwilliam Smythe, for example, are they going to conjure up the same mental images as, you know, Darrell Smith or something like that? Probably not. So yes, it's a little bit of a silly exercise, but actually it's just making your customer portrait or avatar or whatever you want to call it, making it a bit more real. So that's the basics, and everybody should have a basic understanding of who their target customer is and what they like doing and where they go, because that then feeds on to, if you are doing any advertising, then you need to be looking at where you can be contacting them. So that's the basic stuff. But this tip was refine your target audience. Now, this will probably come up more and more as we go through the tips, but I am a great fan of what's known as the 80-20 principle, also known as the Pareto principle, and that basically in this context suggests that for any given business, 80% of your sales will come from 20% of your customers. And it can apply to many different things. But let's just use that example of 80% of your sales come from 20% of your customers. You've got your overall target customers. What you then should do is have a look at your top 20%, because they are the ones who are what I like to call your raving fans. You know, if you bring out a new product, they'll buy it without much persuasion from yourself. So a useful exercise once you've got your basic, once you've got your head around your basic target customers, is to have a look at who your real loyal raving fans, who, you know, they're the ones who make repeat purchases. They're the ones who spend, you know, double or more what your average customer does spend. And what you should do is you should have a look at if there are any traits or similarities that these sort of customers share. So presuming you have got some form of database where you can check to see your customers' data, you know, have a look. Do they live in the same sort of area? Do they, it depends what sort of information you've got. Do you know what sort of job they do? Can you get an understanding of, you know, how much they earn, what car they drive? As much information as you can get. Really, what you're wanting to do is to identify the common factors that are across all of your most loyal 20% of your customers, because that then will allow you to have a much better idea of potentially ways to target them with other offers or things that might be interesting for them. So the other thing that I'd add, which is perhaps a little bit counterintuitive, but it's really powerful, and I advise all of my clients to do this, is just as you've identified your top 20% of your customers, also have a think about who your least performing, your worst customers are, and start the process of getting rid of them, which is a scary concept. But if you think there will always be, just as 80% of your sales might come from 20% of your customers, probably 80% of your complaints will come from 20% of your customers, and it's obviously a very different 20%. And the problem is that all those whingy complainers are probably the ones who don't spend too much money. If they have spent money, it's probably taking you 3 times as long to get them to part with their cash. And when they do, they're never satisfied. Well, bin them. And the reason I say that is because there will be a drain on you and your team, and all the time that you're wasting on these people who will never be your best customers. They'll always be a pain in the arse. All that negative time and energy that you're wasting on them, you could be spending on your better customers. So what you should be doing is identifying not only your top 20%, but also try and identify your bottom 20%. And you don't have to be rude, you don't have to upset them, but it might be that you want to, if you are thinking of increasing prices, increase it to them first. Chances are they are probably likely to be price sensitive. If they then make the decision that they no longer want to do business with you, well, that's a shame, isn't it? You can turn your attention elsewhere. So, when I'm talking about getting rid of your worst performing customers, it doesn't have to be anything. You don't have to do anything that upsets them or causes conflict. But there are often several ways of just, in a very professional way, ending the relationship or encouraging them perhaps to take their business elsewhere. And you will get your rewards for doing that, because it will free up your time to spend on people who are much more likely to be positive, to leave you good reviews, to come back and buy again and again. So it's a really useful exercise. So first off, get your head around the basics of who your customers are, then identify who your top 20% are, then identify who your bottom 20% are, and use that information to the benefit of your business. So hopefully you've got some value out of that, and I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow for day 6. Bye.